Yo, what's up, guys? Coming at you today with a little Thanksgiving special. Gonna be doing a dessert, but I gotta say it, I've never been a huge fan of apple pie, so we're gonna be doing something a little bit different. Gonna be making a apple upside down cake with a rum butter glaze to go on top of it. You know, like I said, never a huge fan of apple pie. I know, sacrosanct, but you know, this apple cake turns out amazing with the rum butter glaze to go on top. It's something else. So, without further ado, let's get into it. Alright, we're going to start things off by making the topping for the cake. Get a saucepan over about a medium heat. Gonna add about 6 tablespoons of unsalted butter to this. Get that to start melting. Then we're going to go ahead and add half a cup of brown sugar in there as well. Once you have that in there, just let this butter melt and keep whisking it. You're going to be whisking this for probably about a minute until it starts to thicken up. After you get that sauce kind of thick, we're going to turn the heat off and then add a quarter teaspoon of cinnamon. And then a quarter teaspoon of vanilla extract in there as well. Once you have those added, just go ahead and whisk them in. So now we're going to get our cake pan out. You can use any size cake pan you want. I went with a larger one for this recipe because I personally like the cake pretty thin and a little bit crispy around the edges. Keep in mind though, using a smaller cake pan is going to make the cake thicker and then it's going to need a little bit longer cooking time. So after your topping's down, we're using 2 cut up apples to cover the pan. Then once it's covered, we're going to actually throw this in the fridge while we prepare the cake batter. So now we're going to start doing our cake batter here. So I have 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour and then 1.5 teaspoons of baking powder. Then another 1.5 teaspoons of cinnamon, a quarter teaspoon of nutmeg, and then about 1/2 teaspoon of salt as well. So we're going to get these all whisked together, just combined pretty evenly. And then we're just going to set this off to the side for the time being. We're going to be mixing our wet ingredients together separately and then eventually pouring this into the wet ingredients in portions and whisking it all together at the end. So now in a separate bowl we're going to do our wet ingredients. So I've got 1/2 cup of unsalted butter here. Now this was left out on my counter to be at room temperature. It's going to make it a lot easier to whisk up and get it creamy. So now if you have a cake mixer, that would be perfect. An egg beater would be better. I'm using an immersion blender with a whisk attachment, and as you can see, it's a little bit of a mess because it's a little too powerful, but it works. So after you have your butter whisked down, you're going to add your sugars, 1/2 cup of brown and then 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, and then get that all whisked together with your butter. Now after it's whisked, I am using my hands just to kind of press it together. Now we're going to add 2 large eggs to the bowl here as well. Now these, the same as the butter, were left out on my counter for a while beforehand to also get brought up to room temperature. Make sure you don't get any shells in there. Now we're going to go ahead and add 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then go ahead and get this all whisked together until you have a nice smooth consistency. You want to make sure everything's fully combined. Now we're going to get our dry ingredients and mix them all together in the same bowl. Now I'm adding these in stages and whisking in between. It's going to make it a little bit easier to get fully whisked, especially if you're doing this by hand. And just really ensure smooth and fully combined consistency here. And don't be afraid of making a mess. I had to scrub the floors in my kitchen immediately following this because they were covered in flour and butter from everything. But that's totally fine. After you have your dry ingredients mixed in, we're going to go ahead and add 6 tablespoons of whole milk here. Now, same as adding in the dry ingredients, I am doing this in like 3 separate additions. And again, that's just to make sure as you're whisking, things are combining evenly. Now this is an important part. Whenever you're adding the milk, you don't want to over mix your ingredients. Just whisk them slowly until everything's fully combined. So we got our caramel apples out of the fridge here, and we're going to go ahead and add our cake batter right on top. Use a rubber spoon or a rubber spatula here to get all the batter out of the bowl. And then once you have all the batter on there, we're just going to use the back end of the rubber spoon or your spatula to just get a nice even coating around the whole cake pan. So I have my oven preheated to 350 degrees, and we're just going to throw that right in there. Set your timer for about 22 minutes because halfway through we're going to add some aluminum foil on top of this, just tenon over it. So now that that's cooking, we're going to go ahead and do our rum butter glaze for the top of it. This isn't necessary, there is a nice caramel coating on top, but this rum butter just adds a little extra level to it. So we have our heat set to medium with 6 tablespoons of butter thrown in. Then we're going to be adding about 3 tablespoons of water. And then another 3 tablespoons of a light rum. I'm using Bacardi here. Any light clear rum will work though. Then we're going to add 3/4 of a cup of granulated sugar to this mixture as well. Now just keep whisking this until everything's fully combined and the butter's fully melted. As soon as that happens, I'm just going to pull this off the heat and set this on a cool burn. And now just sit off to the side till the very end. So now that 22 minutes have passed, like I said before, we're going to cover the cake with the aluminum foil. You don't want this like fully wrapped and surrounding it, just kind of tenon it over the top of it. This will prevent the top or eventually the bottom of the cake from overcooking while the center gets fully cooked. So set your timer for another 22 minutes. And after that's done, we're going to go ahead and check our cake. I don't show it here, but you can shove a fork or a toothpick into the center, and if it comes out clean, your cake's ready to go. So we're going to pull that out and then set it on a cooling rack just to cool for about 15 minutes or so. And then once you can touch the side of the cake pan with your hands after about 15 minutes, we're just going to throw a plate on top, then flip it over, hence the upside down cake. And there you go, we got a nice, lovely brown caramelized apples on top. It's going to be absolutely delicious. So all that's left is to plate it up. Using a cookie card here to go ahead and make it a little bit fancier. So I also threw that rum butter glaze from earlier back on like a low heat just to get it remelted and stir it up, whisk again, just recombine so it's ready to go. So we got our cake on the plate. Then I like to use a little shot glass here to dump my glaze on top. Gives you a little bit more control if you want to do something fancy like doing circles around the edge. It's all for show though. Just spooning the rum butter on top works just as well, but hey, you know. And with that, we're finished. Happy eating.